Cyclingnews is here with Matt White, the professional road coordinator for Cycling Australia, and Neil Stevens, the technical director for the Greenedge team. We're on the way to Paris. It's been a great tour. Cadel's going to ride into Paris in yellow. What do you think of the whole thing? It's been a great thing for Australian cycling as well.
Yeah, I think we're going to look back at this and it's going to be one of the biggest sporting achievements in Australian sport, not just cycling. A big thing for us in our past was winning the America's Cup after more than 100 years of domination by the Americans and more than 100 Tour de France's, and finally 30 years after the first yellow jersey by Phil Anderson, we've won the yellow jersey in Paris.
Do you think it's going to be bigger than the America's Cup? That's what people are saying.
Yeah, we'd like to think so. The Australian cycling has developed over the years. Obviously, Phil Anderson with the yellow jersey in his day. There's been stage winners, there's been yellow jersey holders throughout the last few years. Obviously, a very big thing was Cadel Evans winning the World Championships back in a couple of years ago. And but now that not only taking the yellow jersey, winning the Tour de France in the fashion that he did it, it's going to be a huge thing in Australia.
Yeah, I think the difference between the America's Cup and the Tour de France is, Australians like to be the underdog and we like to win. But how many people sail in Australia? Whereas cycling is not a mainstream sport, but it's getting very, very popular, and I think a lot more people will be able to relate to Cadel's victory than the America's Cup.
You're here in France, but what have you heard from back home? What's it been like? I've heard there's been big parties, front page news, lead story news on evening news programs, things like that. It must be huge.
Yeah, I heard one statistic that the television ratings, that a third of the Australian population has been watching the Tour de France the last 3 days, and it's on at 2 o'clock in the morning. So it's unbelievable. And I was talking to Cadel's manager in Australia, and he was saying that they've had phone calls from the Prime Minister, both parties, every media outlet in the country, and it's been crazy.
So Neil, lots of celebrations and lots of drinking probably as well. I don't know.
Well, if they're up till 3 o'clock in the morning, I don't know. It's the middle of winter in Australia. I don't know whether they're drinking hot chocolate or whether they're drinking other things, but probably not much work getting done, so I don't know if it's very good for the Australian economy. But no, it's certainly very big. We're here on the TGV on their way up to Paris. The train's full of Australians. There's a lot of Australians in Paris. A lot of Australians trying to get tickets to get over to Paris over the last few days, but we're in for a big night.
I'd like to have shares in the company that makes the blow-up kangaroos. I tell you, I've never seen so many.
Just looking back at the whole race for a bit, what's your personal picks of the key moment of the race for you, or the best moment of the race? Perhaps for Cadel.
I think the first key moment with Cadel was obviously the way that BMC rode the first 10 days. Now, to get through that first 10 days unscathed, they rode a brilliant team's time trial, and tactically they played it very, very well, and to get to the Pyrenees unscathed.
Yeah, I tend to think that the Tour de France was won probably even before the Tour de France even started. Cadel's methodical approach to the way he gets races ready, the team's support, 100% support of that sort of method of working. I think Cadel said it on the podium yesterday. The work that he did in the past with Aldo Sassi, it's been crucial. And so Cadel's not only his methodical approach, but also he's been able to keep his mind. He's been able to not lose his nerve in those critical moments. And the last, like Matt said, we could have lost it in the first part of the Tour de France, but certainly the last 3 days in the Alps, he's known how to use his energy in the best moments, to not lose his nerve, and to be able to take it to his rivals.
What do you guys think when you were watching him in the Alps on those two stages, to the Galibier when he was chasing Andy and things, and then the day after when he had the mechanical but came back on and kind of set up his victory on Alpe d'Huez?
I think firstly with the Galibier, the ride on the Galibier, to take control of the Tour de France was slipping away. I don't think anyone expected the move from Andy Schleck, but to take control 10 kilometres from the finish, he realised that no one was going to give him a hand. Maybe no one else had the legs to give him a hand, and he took control, took 2 minutes back on Andy, and gave himself a chance for the last couple of stages. I suppose after that, yesterday's stage with the mechanicals couldn't have happened at a worse period of time in the Tour de France, but it was still a little bit of time to get back and recover, and with his teammates and with the way that his legs, he could control the Schlecks.
Yeah, I tend to think there was a stage. I think Matt and I met up for a cup of coffee on the day, the Galibier stage, and we were both sort of commenting to say that this is where Cadel is at the moment going to lose the Tour de France, and that was the moment that he took the reins in his own hands. He had very little or no support from the rest of the competitors. In fact, one of the competitors, the rider who's going to win the white jersey, had his leader of the Tour de France there, and they weren't willing to help. And so Cadel said, "Look, I'm going to ignore the rest of them. I'm going to take it here under control." We always knew that if he was within that 2-minute bracket going into the final time trial in Grenoble, that he had a very good chance of beating the Schleck brothers, which he did. He put 2.5 minutes. Once again, his method of working. He'd actually ridden the course, he'd raced on the course, he knew every corner of the course. Andy Schleck had never seen it before. He went there to see it on the morning of the time trial. It just compares the way things are done, and we're lucky that there was no mistakes, and he's going to, like you say, go into Paris with the yellow jersey.
Would you two guys have liked to ridden in this tour, perhaps in Cadel's team, be part of it?
Well, I think any Australian would like to be part of an Australian team that wins the Tour de France, and I suppose the big question now is how many years is Cadel going to keep going for, and finding and developing the next Cadel Evans?
Yeah, I think that anyone, the train full of Australians here now, the Australians that are waiting in Paris, is a thing that any Australian worth his salt would like to be part of the Cadel team, if you like. Whether that team is the 9 riders on the road, whether the team is the mechanic that's pumping up his tyres, whether his team is the people that are yelling when he goes past, or the team of the people up at 3 o'clock in the morning in Australia watching the Cadel Evans. But as Matt said, with the Cycling Federation and Matt's great work there, and with ours within the Greenedge project, we're looking to try to develop good all-round bike riders. But I think we're going to have to wait a little while to get another Cadel Evans.
Yeah, because unfortunately Cadel's under contract next year, so he won't be with Greenedge.
He won't be riding with Greenedge. Cadel Evans is a great supporter of Australian cycling. He's a great friend of ours. He was actually at the European presentation of Greenedge with his BMC clothing on. As you say, he's under contract with BMC for a long time, but that doesn't mean to say that he doesn't support the movement with Australian cycling, the movement with the Greenedge cycling project. And even though he's in a different team, there's a few other Australians, very good Australians, that are under contract with different teams, they really support our project. They give moral support even if they haven't got their jerseys on.
How's things going with the team? I think you're going to have, 70% Australians, and I heard perhaps some first names will be announced mid-August. Would there be any surprises in the team?
Well, they're not surprises to me because I know the ones we're targeting. We in January we said that we'd like to get around about 60% Australians. That figure might be a little bit higher, might be up around 70%. We've got a great pool of Australian talent at the moment. We're going to be an Australian team, as you say, with a very strong international flavour as well. I think the Europeans are really going to add value to the team. I suppose there's a lot of rumours around about people who could come to the team, who might not come to the team. But I tend to think we're well advancing in our conversations with some of the best talent in the available talent in the Australian cycling world.
And Matt, you'll be working on the national team for the next 2 months, getting ready for Copenhagen. That's a big goal. I mean, perhaps with Cadel. Well, with Cadel as a tour winner.
Yeah, I think the first goal for us is on August 14th, and we take a team to London for the test event. And I'm going to take a team, very similar team that I've got in mind for next year's Olympics. I think it's important to race together. It's only once a year, usually race with a green and gold jersey on, so it's the second time, and it's really good to have a look at the course 1 year out. And then obviously we build our momentum towards Copenhagen, which I think it's a course that really does suit numerous Australians.
And you'll be putting tonight in Paris, both of you, I suppose?
Well, it'd be very un-Australian not to, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't fly out till 7 in the morning, and so whether I go directly from dinner to the airport or not, I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, thanks.